Hey, so this is an update just for the special council meeting last night, September 24th. So there was a public meeting at 6:30 in regards to the land transfer between the township and Evendale developments to allow Harema Boulevard to come straight out to Brock. It will meet up with Nelkid at Brock, and there will be basically a four-way intersection there. There has been talk about putting a traffic light there. Hopefully there will be something, but it sounds like there will be traffic lights there. So what happened with this was the land that the township owns is where the right-of-way for Donland Lane is. And then Evendale Developments owns that whole block of land from Donland all the way over till it hits the farm that is east of there. So what the township wants to do and the builder wants to do is trade the land that Donland Lane is taking up right now for the land that Harema will take up later. So they have to have that appraised. The developer is responsible for any of the costs involved in the land transfer, and if there is any difference in the cost of the appraised value of each piece of land, then the developer is responsible for covering that as well. So it's a pretty straightforward process. You know, we give him some land on one side, we take some land out of the middle, we put a street in, he puts a development in, and we call it a day. It's proposed for 94 townhome units at the moment. That is what is in the draft plan. But I have heard rumors that it was actually whittled down to 88. I couldn't find any information about that on the township website in the application portion. There may be something in past council minutes somewhere that I just, didn't look for. That, I think, is pretty much all about the Evendale development. So essentially when that's done, Low Boulevard will come straight through to Harema. The little block that is left in between where Donlands runs now and Harema and Low, there'll be 4 lots put in there, and then the rest of the development will be going over to the east side of Harema. The little block southwest of Harema and north of Brock is slated for future development. They couldn't tell me last night whether that was going to be residential or commercial, just that there are no plans for it at the moment. The second part of the meeting was regarding West Lane Developments, which is a development by the same builder as Evendale, proposed to go in basically across the street on the south side of Brock. The municipal address for that currently is 216 and 226 Brock Street East. That's currently about, I think, 3 doors, the 4th property down from Nelkid, going towards the east. They're proposing 64 townhome units, which they were eager to point out, which was lower density than they are allowed. They could go up to, I can't remember what the number was, but it was quite a bit more than what they're proposing. There were concerns raised about snapping turtle migration. The grading away from the existing homes on Brownscombe, because they are already lower than what the grade is at Brock. People were curious as to how the grading was going to go uphill and prevent the water from going back to the homes on Brownscombe. There were also concerns raised in regards to fire There's only one entrance and exit into the property as far as the draft plan goes at the moment. So that will need to be addressed with fire services, fire and emergency services. Another resident wanted the air conditioning units to be installed by the builder to prevent later installations of noisy and unsightly units. If you look at the map, and I'll post some pictures below when the video is done, I took pictures last night of their, sort of artist renderings. They don't have those in the actual draft plan. I don't believe there is a draft plan for that one yet on the township website. No, there's a conceptual design brief and a couple of site grading plans, as well as, the environmental site assessments and all that stuff. And I'll post links to those below as well. There will be 3 blocks going along Brock Street, and they are proposing that those be 3-story units. Now, at the front, they'll be more like 2.5 story, and then, like a walkout is in the rear, it's going to be the full 3 stories. Those units along Brock will actually have their front yards facing Brock and their rear yards facing away from Brock, so facing south. They will have their driveways and their garages in the rear, and they're going to basically be left with no yard. When I questioned that people wouldn't have a backyard, he said, oh, well, there will be a balcony or some sort of deck on the second level that will basically go over the garage or the driveway for them to use the yard in the rear. Okay, some people, I guess, wouldn't mind that, less grass to cut, but I would prefer a backyard. Bungalows were suggested for the units that will back onto the existing homes on Brownscombe to sort of protect the view and not be towering over and that sort of thing. They are not currently on the conceptual drawing. The meeting last night was really just for introducing their sort of view, and then having it rezoned so that they can go ahead and do a final plan. Of course, we hope that they take the recommendations from the town and the concerns of the residents into account when they are coming up with a final plan. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to say, yeah, that'll work, going in and saying that I don't like it or I don't want it behind me isn't a valid excuse for them to stop building. You have to have a definitive excuse for them not to build. And I haven't really seen a whole lot yet that will actually stop people from building. They seem to work around it and make concessions and that sort of thing. They were also concerned with turtle migration paths. Apparently there are a lot of turtles in the area because this will border the stormwater retention pond that is adjacent to Nelkid. I see geese walking across to the high school all the time. I actually work at the business that is right in front of that stormwater retention pond. So I know it is very active with animals and wildlife. So that definitely needs to be maintained. The one thing that I was really actually quite comfortable with was the amount of parking that was allotted. There will be 2 spaces in the driveway for each unit, plus the interior parking in the garage if you use your garage for that, plus an additional 50% for visitor parking. So for every 2 units, there will be 1 visitor parking space, which I thought was quite a bit better than what we've gotten before. And I know the same developer has just built down the street from us in the last couple of years, and there was absolutely no visitor parking. So I see this as a good progression. They have not done an inventory on the mature trees to determine which ones they can or can't salvage, if any. They also haven't had any discussions regarding the inclusion of affordable or accessible units, which concerns me. I think that needs to be done. And the report from the Conservation Authority regarding the environmental impact is not yet finished. So I would really be eager to see those before any other plans are made, of course. Another note that was brought up was that the residents in the Fox Trail development were not notified about the progression of the development on the north side of Brock, which is Evendale, the sort of sister to the West Lane development. They were told by staff that it's only required that they notify them within a 120 meter buffer zone. I think that needs to be larger. These people live right there. They need to know what's going on. And I know not everybody always reads the paper and visits the township website, which frankly isn't that easy to find stuff on anyway. So there was, this was a rezoning meeting, as I said. It was really just to put in an application to have the property rezoned from rural to residential so that they can build this development in the first place. If that doesn't happen, then they don't have a development. Last night was their one statutory meeting that they are required to hold and advise the public on. After this, they're not required to really do anything. They have to have a public planning meeting, but in order to make any objections or anything like that, it's my understanding that you actually have to make a deputation for that meeting in order to object to anything at that point. That will happen when a planning report is returned. And if you have any objections to the rezoning of the property, you have 30 days from yesterday to send a letter or an email to I believe it's the planning department. I'll clarify that in the links below the video as to why you're objecting. And like I said, just because you don't like it, it doesn't really, it can't stop them, unfortunately. Townships towns in general are mandated by a municipal act that states, we have to do certain things. And just because we don't like the development coming in or we don't like the way it looks, it really doesn't allow us to stop them. So we try and work with them and make sure that it's as aesthetically pleasing as possible so that even though we can't stop them, we can live with it later. I think that was about it. As I said, I will post links and pictures in under the video, and I'll post pictures as well of the conceptual drawings of what they, propose the townhomes to look like, because there are actually none of those on the township website underneath the current applications. So hope that was informative. Hope it filled you in on those two developments so far, and we will hope to see you later. Remember, you have your voters packages in the mail by now, likely. Hang on to them until we know for sure whether there is a strike happening or not. We don't want them getting caught in the postal system and being held hostage because then nobody gets any votes. So have a good week, and I'll talk to you later.